Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever bent over backwards for someone, stayed late, answered their calls, helped them move, listened to their problems for hours and then realized they barely even noticed? And meanwhile, you look across the room and there's that one guy. He doesn't seem to try that hard. He's not the loudest person. He doesn't volunteer for everything. But somehow, when he walks in, the energy shifts. People lean in. They want his opinion. They remember what he says. What does he know that you don't? Here's the uncomfortable truth that took me a long time to accept. Human beings do not value what is always available. We are wired psychologically, evolutionarily, almost mechanically, to want what requires effort to obtain. And the moment you make yourself endlessly available, endlessly agreeable, endlessly easy to access, you're not being generous. You're training the people around you to see you as ordinary. And that's exactly what Niccolo Machiavelli understood 5 centuries ago. Now, most people hear his name and think manipulation or ruthlessness. But strip away the reputation, and what Machiavelli was doing was brutally honest psychology. He studied how power actually works. Not how we wish it worked, not how it looks in movies, but how it really, truly, messy, humanly works. And a lot of what he observed maps perfectly onto what modern psychology confirms today. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 principles inspired by Machiavelli's thinking and backed by real psychology that will fundamentally change the way people see you. Not by making you meaner, not by turning you into someone you're not, but by making you respect yourself enough that the people around you have no choice but to follow suit. Let's get into it. Point 1. Stop giving everyone unlimited access to you. Here's the first thing I want you to burn into your brain. Your time is the only truly non-renewable resource you have. Money can be made back. Energy can be recovered after sleep. But a Tuesday afternoon, gone forever. And when you treat your time like it has no cost, when you're available at every hour, when you drop everything for anyone who asks, when you say yes by default, you are communicating something to the people around you. You're communicating that your time has no value, and people will believe you. This isn't theory. Think about it practically. When something is rare, we call it precious. When something is everywhere, we step over it. A gemstone is valuable partly because it's hard to find. A sunset is beautiful, partly because it only lasts 20 minutes. The moment your presence, your attention, your help becomes something anyone can have at any time with zero effort, it stops being something people prize. Machiavelli wrote about this dynamic in the context of princes and political power, but the underlying human psychology is universal. He understood that leaders who were too accessible were eventually taken for granted. The same applies to you in your friendships, your workplace, your romantic life. The guy who's always around, always available, always ready to drop everything, he becomes invisible. Not because he's bad, because he's everywhere. So what's the fix? It's not about becoming cold or difficult on purpose. It's about something much more authentic than that. It's about having a life. It's about having priorities that genuinely compete for your time. When you're actually busy with your own goals, your own projects, your own development, you don't have to fake being unavailable. You just aren't. And that natural scarcity creates natural value. Start protecting your time not as a strategy, but as a statement of self-respect. Point 2. Use the power of mystery. There's a reason the most magnetic people you've ever met are not the ones who told you everything about themselves in the first conversation. Think about someone you found genuinely fascinating. Did they explain every decision they made? Did they announce their plans before executing them? Did they broadcast every thought and every feeling? Almost certainly not. Mystery is one of the oldest psychological levers in human interaction. We are drawn to what we don't fully understand. Our brains are pattern recognition machines. They're constantly trying to solve puzzles, and a person who is slightly difficult to read keeps the cognitive engine running. You become, in a very real sense, a puzzle people want to solve. Now, this doesn't mean you should be evasive or cold or dishonest. It means you should let your actions speak before your mouth does. There's an old principle that goes, before you've done something, don't talk about it. Talking about it disperses the energy. It kills the mystery. It gives people a preview that often doesn't match the finished product, and it opens the door for opinions and objections before you've had the chance to build momentum. Machiavelli was intensely aware of this. He knew that leaders who over-explained themselves appeared weak and uncertain. A decision that's made and executed speaks for itself. A decision that's endlessly justified sounds like it needs defending. The next time you have a plan, resist the urge to announce it, build it, do it, let people react to the result. You'll be surprised how much more interesting you become when people are watching you, rather than waiting for your permission to have an opinion. Point 3. Have clear, unwavering standards. Now this one is where a lot of people get it genuinely wrong, and I want to slow down and make sure it lands properly. The fastest way to lose someone's respect, faster than any single mistake you could make, is inconsistency. Because inconsistency tells people something about you that they'll never forget. It tells them you don't actually believe the things you say. Picture this. A guy tells his co-workers he doesn't tolerate people showing up late to meetings. 3 days later, someone shows up 15 minutes late, and he says nothing. Next week, someone else does it, and suddenly he's upset. What does everyone in that office now know about him? They know that his rules are moods, not principles. And the moment people understand that your limits are negotiable depending on how you feel on a given day, they stop respecting them entirely. Clear standards aren't about controlling other people. That's a crucial distinction. You can't control whether someone respects your time, treats you fairly, or keeps their word. But you absolutely control what you allow to continue happening in your life. If someone consistently disrespects your time, you stop investing yours in them. If a situation doesn't meet your standards, you walk away from it. Simple, calm, consistent. Machiavelli understood that perceived strength comes from predictability of character, not rigidity. Predictability. When people know exactly where your lines are because you enforce them without drama, without negotiation, without emotional theatrics, they don't test those lines because they already know the outcome. That kind of quiet consistency is one of the most powerful things you can cultivate. Point 4. Speak less, listen more. I'm going to say something that might sting a little. The person who talks the most in the room is usually the least powerful person in the room. Now, I'm not talking about the person leading a meeting or giving a presentation. I'm talking about the person who fills every silence, who shares an opinion on everything, who can't resist adding a comment to every conversation. That person becomes background noise, and background noise doesn't get listened to. The counterintuitive truth is that silence is one of the loudest signals you can send. When you speak rarely, deliberately, and specifically, when you wait, observe, think, and then say something that actually adds value, people pay attention in a completely different way. Your words carry weight precisely because they're not everywhere. This connects to something well documented in social psychology. We assign higher credibility to people who seem selective. A doctor who carefully considers before answering feels more trustworthy than one who immediately rattles off an answer. A negotiator who pauses before responding seems more certain of their position. A person who asks a pointed question, rather than filling the space with chatter, seems more intelligent, even if the content is identical. The practical application here is simple. Practice pausing. In your next conversation, before you respond to something, take a beat. Let the other person finish completely. Don't just wait for your turn to speak while half listening. Actually listen, then respond, and when you do, make it count. Over time, people around you will start to wonder what you're thinking, and that curiosity, that's leverage. Point 5. Be reliable, not always available. There's a difference between the guy who says yes to everything and the guy who only commits to what he can actually deliver, and the difference is enormous. One of those guys builds trust. The other one builds a reputation for flakiness, even if he means well. Reliability is not the same as availability. Availability is about being present. Reliability is about being dependable. And in the long run, people don't remember who was always around. They remember who showed up when it counted and delivered on what they said they would. Machiavelli was blunt about this in the context of leadership. A leader who makes 1,000 promises and keeps half of them is weaker than a leader who makes 5 promises and keeps all 5. Every broken commitment, no matter how small, chips away at the foundation of trust. Every kept commitment, no matter how small, adds a layer to it. So here's a practical shift worth making immediately. The next time someone asks something of you, instead of saying yes automatically, slow down. Ask yourself honestly, can I actually do this? Do I have the time, the energy, the resources to follow through? If the answer is yes, commit fully. If the answer is no, or even maybe, be honest about it. "I can't take that on right now" is a sentence that costs you almost nothing. A broken promise costs you something you can't easily get back. Point 6. Create scarcity around your presence. You probably know someone who shows up to every event, every group chat, every gathering, every casual hangout. They're always around. And because they're always around, you don't think much about them. You know they'll be there. Their presence doesn't feel special because it's a given. Now think about someone else. Someone who is genuinely busy, who has their own things going on, who comes to an event, maybe once a month. When they show up, it feels like an event in itself. People are glad to see them. People make time for them. Their presence carries weight because it's not a constant. This is scarcity operating at a social level, and it's one of the most instinctive psychological forces in human behavior. We want what is rare. We take for granted what is omnipresent. And this applies not just to objects, but to people. Now let me be clear about something important. The goal is not to engineer artificial scarcity by intentionally ghosting people or being cold. That's manipulation, and it tends to backfire. The goal is to actually build a life that is full enough, purposeful enough, and meaningful enough that you genuinely can't be everywhere. When you have goals you're pursuing, skills you're developing, projects that demand your attention, you stop being the guy who shows up everywhere because you simply don't have time to. And that fullness radiates. People sense when someone has a direction. It's attractive in the most fundamental sense of the word. Point 7. Become difficult to replace. We've saved the most important one for last, and it's the one that everything else in this video builds toward. Because here's the cold, clear truth. You can manage your time perfectly, maintain perfect mystery, set flawless standards, speak strategically, keep every promise, and be selectively present, and still be replaceable if what you bring to the table is something anyone else can also bring. Machiavelli understood this in terms of political value. A prince who held a unique position through skill, knowledge, or strategic alliance was far more secure than one who was easily substituted. The principle translates directly. When you develop skills, perspectives, and capabilities that are genuinely hard to find, people don't just respect you, they need you, and that changes the entire dynamic. This doesn't mean becoming some kind of specialist so narrow that no one can work with you. It means developing depth. It means thinking harder, going further, learning more thoroughly than the average person is willing to. It means solving problems in ways that other people haven't thought of. It means bringing something to every room you walk into that wasn't there before you arrived. There's a concept in economics called a moat. It refers to a competitive advantage that's hard to replicate. The best companies have wide moats. The best employees have wide moats. The most respected people have wide moats. And a moat isn't built overnight. It's built through consistent investment in yourself, in your skills, your knowledge, your judgment, your character. Every hour you spend genuinely improving yourself is an hour being invested in your own irreplaceability. Ask yourself honestly, if I left my job tomorrow, how hard would it be to find someone who does what I do the way I do it? If the answer is pretty easy, that's not a judgment, it's information. It tells you where to focus. Start building the things that can't be easily copied. Conclusion. Let's bring all of this together, because I want you to walk away with more than just a list of 7 things to try. I want you to see the thread that runs through all of them. Every single principle we talked about today is ultimately a form of self-respect. Protecting your time is self-respect. Letting your actions speak is self-respect. Setting consistent standards is self-respect. Listening before you speak is self-respect. Keeping your commitments is self-respect. Building a full life is self-respect. Investing in your own development is self-respect. And here's the thing about self-respect that most people get backwards. They think you earn it by having other people's approval. They think the path runs through external validation. If enough people tell you that you're valuable, you'll start to feel it. But it actually works the opposite way. When you genuinely decide that your time, your energy, and your presence are worth protecting, other people's behavior toward you shifts almost automatically. Not because you tricked them, because you changed the signal you're putting out into the world. Machiavelli wasn't teaching people to be cruel, he was teaching people to be clear. Clear about their value, clear about their limits, clear about what they were willing to accept and what they weren't. That clarity, that honest, unsentimental clarity about yourself is the foundation that everything else in this video rests on. You don't need to beg for respect. You don't need to perform for it. You don't need to exhaust yourself proving your worth to people who weren't paying attention anyway. You just need to start acting like someone who already knows what they're worth, and the world has a funny way of taking you at your word. If what we covered today resonated with you, I want to leave you with one question to sit with tonight. Which of these 7 principles am I currently violating the most? Because usually there's one that's the root of most of the respect issues in your life. Just one. And fixing that one will do more than trying to fix all 7 at once. If you want to go deeper on the psychology of social influence, specifically why some people naturally attract opportunity, loyalty, and respect without seeming to try, I've put together a video that goes into exactly that. It covers the behavioral science behind what researchers call high-status signaling and how you can apply it without becoming someone you don't recognize. That video is linked right here. Watch it next. I think it'll connect directly to what you just learned.